All right, Jim. We have returned. And of course, AEW Full Gear was a spectacular like no other. But you have to wonder, what does the boss have to say about all of this, about everything happening in AEW, the state of AEW? We always talk about it. What does Tony have to say about it? We have Media Scrum audio.
I thought you meant the final boss. You just mean the regular boss.
When the final boss shows up next, he may be the size of Tony. We'll see what happens, but we have Tony Khan audio from the Media Scrum. It's been a while since we checked one of these out. Do you have any thoughts about Tony Khan Media Scrum audio returning to the show here?
Yes, I'm not ever in favor of it because he says the same shit every time.
Well, let's get the first question here that was asked of Tony. This one was about where the company was a year ago and how it is today. I guess the 1 year, I don't know what the hell I'm saying, but I guess we've heard a narrative recently.
I'm just looking at this email titled "This Week's Spasnors."
Oh, God damn it. I type things out quickly because you're being a pain in the ass, and then I get this Spasnors on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know where we were, but here we are. Tony Khan audio. Jim, a narrative you've heard recently, it was on the Ariel Helwani show, it was in, I guess, other interviews, is the idea that he really kicked it into full gear, no pun intended, a year ago. And it's the best work he's ever done, the best booking he's ever done.
He quit doing things against his better judgment, and he's taking control of the ship, and he's steering it, and he's stoking the furnace, and he's pedaling the pedals, and it's him. And he thinks this is great.
And at the same time, over a period where WWE has cooled off, AEW has cooled off, and you could see it in the crowds. Notwithstanding 10,000 people for a pay-per-view in Newark, in the New York City area. You see it in the ratings when we had the quarter hours, and now that we only have the new method, which is causing people to panic because it's so low for wrestling. There hasn't really been much progress that you see. We hear loose things about pay-per-view numbers, but there's no tangible evidence that anything's up.
Basically, everybody reports that Tony says that, oh, yeah, it was exceeding our expectations by 10,000 over last time, or it's right about what we usually do, but nobody ever sees a manifest or anything, do they?
Maybe Dave does, and that's why he's so confident, but let's go to this. Tony reflecting on where the company was 1 year ago to where it is today. Swami, quite upset about this.
Hey, Tony, Bill from Pop Break. We've talked a lot tonight about like people coming full circle. Take us from last year at Full Gear to this year at Full Gear and talk about creatively and everything that's gone on and how you personally feel about where the company was 1 year ago to today. Thanks.
1 year ago, sitting in this chair today, I don't feel now. 1 year ago, I felt, and today, it's 180 degrees the other way. Felt 1 year ago embattled. I feel the opposite. I feel like we are doing the 10,000 fans and having the Full Gear show felt like the beginning of a turnaround. And that's really what everybody, the vibe of the Full Gear last year was like, this feels like the beginning of a big turnaround for us. And you look at 1 year later and it feels like we're on such a great run this year. It's been a really great year for us. Some interesting things I'm learning about looking back at this year, and we're in the fourth quarter now of the year. It feels like the fourth quarter, like a sports game, but also fourth quarters, breaking the year down into quarters. The first 3 quarters of the year.
What is he saying?
Year over year.
What is he talking about? I can't follow the guy. I'm trying to make notes on the words that he says.
Well, I know you were listening because you didn't really pipe in. He was saying how last year, when they had a big crowd apparently for the same pay-per-view event, people said, this feels like the beginning of a turnaround, and that the last year that we all witnessed with our eyes was the turnaround.
He's trying to tell us how many quarters there are in a year. He won't just...
Let's go back to Mr. Calendar. He loves his calendar girl. Let's go back to Tony Khan.
Here we gained share on CBS for Dynamite, which is huge. For TNT right now on Collision, this is the time of year now where after some playoffs and stuff, the show's back in its groove, and this is the most exciting time of the year, I think, because now the Continental Classic gets
people.
Going.
Collision is back in its groove at 200,000 people, and Dynamite is winning its share. Then that, if to phrase it that way, means that the rest of TBS's programs suck too.
Collision's back in their groove of 56,000 in the key demo. Let's go back to Tony Khan.
And we're down into the final stretch. Last year, it felt like from Full Gear and the Continental Classic, things really picked up. I thought the Continental Classic last year was even better than the first year. And there were so many exciting things happening. I thought we ended the year on really high notes. And then this year, I've just been so happy with the AEW shows. I think this has been the most consistent year. I thought tonight was another great pay-per-view, which means, and it's just opinions. It's all personal opinions. I feel like we're batting 1,000 on the shows this year. I thought the pay-per-views were great last year too, but I also think that the TV has been more consistently great this year. And
great. We're batting 1,000.
One of the big changes is having.
Let me stop for a second. Batting 1,000. That's a hell of a statement for. I don't even know if Vince McMahon or Bill Watts would have ever said that.
Nobody would ever. He loves his shows, the shows that he puts together for him.
Having the show streaming on HBO Max. And there were a lot of questions. Would we be able to having shows every Wednesday on TBS and every Saturday on TNT when we started putting the shows on HBO Max? Would we be able to sustain, hold up, do well? And we've done really, really well keeping a great audience on cable for the shows and also adding a whole new audience on streaming. And then recently we started doing the pay-per-views on HBO Max. And I think this is going to be the biggest one yet. And I'm really excited about it. Won't have all the data till early next week, but just from early advanced buys, it felt like this was a real great success story. We had great international support for the show, but trying new things, having the tailgate brawl, having an hour on TNT right before we go live with a pay-per-view to sell the pay-per-view and do things to hook people in. The last pay-per-view.
What things hooked people in? Seeing a fat guy from Costco spots fucking do it.
And again, we're several minutes into the question about reflecting on where the company was a year ago versus today.
Yes. And we understand that Tony likes his television programs that he writes and produces. But again, besides all of this gibberish, he's not speaking in any coherent, logical train of thought about the question that he was asked because he's too busy blowing himself. And how in the world does he think that you notice he said, would we hold up? Would we sustain? Would we do well? And we've done well. You didn't hold up. You didn't sustain because your ratings have dropped even before the new method dropped them further.
Well, let's go back a little bit more for this question with Tony Khan.
Like it worked really well, and there was a very positive reception having things on the tailgate brawl, including the FTR versus Jet Speed match that went into the pay-per-view, and that was very positively received. Tonight we had a twist on it where it was, again, a match that helped us hook people in, but then Okada's arrival, a little different, but also a very exciting way to have the tailgate brawl connect to the pay-per-view, and that was very well received also.
By who?
We're doing things.
Yeah, where's that feedback coming from?
Where is the great reception, except that when you were sitting there at the monitor, you said, oh, wow, this is so cool.
Let me see what my friends on Twitter are saying. What are my friends in the Discord server saying? Let's go back a little bit more, this answer, Tony Khan.
Things differently a year later, but I felt like 1 year ago, that was the beginning of a great run of things that now, like you said, full circle, it feels like a total opposite feeling where it was like a year ago, it felt like the beginning of a turnaround. And now it feels like just flow, momentum, and what a great year we're having. So thank you for asking.
Well, there it is. He wrapped up the question, Jim. They're having a great year.
Last year, it felt like a turnaround. To which direction? That's the thing. Because last year at this time, they were doing, well, I mean, they were doing better than they are now, but the show still mostly fucking sucked. So was he felt like a turnaround where it was going to get better. It felt like a turnaround where, yeah, it got worse.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't hear a lot of people saying AEW feels really hot right now, or they're running on a hot streak, or they have a lot of momentum they're building upon. He sees things that no one else sees.
Well, somebody else over in Campbell by the Sea, California, might see, I think, the same thing.
Well, Jim, our next question to Tony is one about the brand new national championship that was just introduced and what the inspiration was for this championship. Let's go to this and see what you think.
Seems like an easy question to answer.
Justin Orazio with Sports Radio 94 WIP in Philadelphia. Tony, it's nice to see you again.
Hey, good to see you.
We've heard a lot from indie promoters talking about how much success they've seen from Mercedes Moné going to their promotion and winning belts there. Did that have any impact in the decision to create the AEW National Championship?
I think absolutely that is one aspect of it. And it's not just independent promotions, but also I think strong international promotions. We've had a really good year in ROH. We've done a lot of different things this year. And so far, I think the ROH pay-per-views have been great, but there's also been really good reception. I think every time we've put some of the shows on YouTube, people have really been very receptive. I know a lot of people do at times miss when we used to put up Dark and Elevation on YouTube every week. Hearing Shivani and Paul White on commentary made me miss Elevation. I don't know about any of you Elevation hardcores like me. I absolutely love those shows. So I know people love when we put wrestling shows on YouTube to begin with, but really in terms of having stories, championships, and a great group of wrestlers and some young wrestlers and some veterans, I think it's been a great year for ROH. And I thought that Supercard of Honor.
Let me stop it for a second. Was
what?
He asked?
I don't even, again, besides the fact this is all gibberish, and it's a great year for Ring of Honor when he puts them on YouTube and all this others didn't have anything to do with the national title. And the fact that there's 18 million titles. And what does, if Mercedes is winning little indie companies' titles, what does that have to do with the national title? Is he going to put the national title on Ricochet and then send him around to Jerkwater and Mud Lick to fucking face the local champion Tits McGee? What is this rambling?
Well, again, Ring of Honor is having a great year. This somehow explains how Mercedes Moné was part of the influence in his decision to create a national championship. Back to Tony Khan.
And Death Before Dishonor have included some of the best wrestling matches. And even though I was frustrated with the circumstances that led to me making a choice in the chair of putting up Supercard of Honor on YouTube for everybody to watch, actually, there was some very good silver linings, because then I think it opened a ton of people's eyes. Like, this is an awesome pay-per-view. I like this, what Ring of Honor has been doing. These are great. And then in addition to that, I thought putting the Global War.
Let me stop for a second. Have you heard anyone, even the biggest Tony Khan defender, say that he has boosted the recognition of Ring of Honor?
No, I don't even see anything about it on Twitter anymore. Does it make any news anywhere?
For all you Elevation hardcores, no one was an Elevation hardcore. That's why the show went away. There was no one wanting to see it. Let's go back to more from Tony Khan.
Wars show up for free on YouTube was super positively received. I really loved the ROH Global Wars, in particular Global Wars Mexico. When you look at some of the matches, Bandito and Dorada, Moriarty and Blue Panther, that tag match now, and look back at that, seeing Persephone and Athena on opposite sides in that tag match, Persephone and Thunder against Athena and Red Velvet was outstanding. And now Athena versus Persephone for the
This is about how the national championship was created.
Yeah, and how, I swear to God, you tell me something ain't wrong with him. People say that I can remember everything. Ask me to goddamn list the card for Siler City, North Carolina in August 1986. I'm going to have to go to the notes. But he's just bing, 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 these obscure How many shows and matches does he see and write and et cetera per week?
Well, he's at every show. He goes to every show. He's the only one
I know
at every
that.
show. Let's go back to Tony Khan on the inspiration for the creation of the national championship.
ROH women's world title. So ROH can really benefit for the first time ever. There's never been AEW sending a champion to ROH. It's never happened in the history of the promotions. So that's very exciting. I know that from talking to CMLL and New Japan, they are interested in this, especially when you consider Ricochet has wrestled for both those promotions and done very, very well and made appearances for New Japan Pro Wrestling and CMLL, even going to wrestling on Wrestle Dynasty, going down to Arena Mexico. So certainly you couldn't have asked for, frankly, a better first champion than Ricochet. I absolutely think.
Yeah, you could have. There were several options in the match.
Well, but besides that, Brian, if he's the national champion, that means he's the champion of the whole nation. So who gives a fuck about him in Mexico or Japan or any other goddamn nation?
Well, let's go back. There's still more about, at least we got to the national championship. The idea that Ricochet may defend it like Mercedes Moné in different places around the world. I guess that's what he's saying. I don't know what Ring of Honor had to do with any of this, but let's go back to Tony Khan.
It is eye-opening to see people raving about the positive contributions of having an AEW wrestler on their shows, but it's not just any AEW wrestler. It's Mercedes Moné, the TBS champion, somebody that is one of the really recognizable stars of wrestling and somebody that is one of the top wrestlers in the world. So in this case, you have another top star, somebody who has great credentials and also is a very recognizable wrestling star, who is a very hardworking star who's traveled the world. So I do think Mercedes blazed trails in terms of probably traveling and wrestling outside AEW more than any champion ever, not necessarily always defending the TBS
This
championship.
motherfucker can make you tap out like you've been sugar-holded by a NCAA champion. Do they ever just say, okay, that answers my question?
Again, the question was about if Mercedes Moné inspired the national championship, and in his own Stengolese, we kind of got there. We have a few more seconds of this answer. Let's go back to this.
Championships and taking over promotions. So it'll be interesting to have AEW having a champion going and making defenses. And we'll see how far it goes. He may only make one, and it could end any time for Ricochet. That's what makes it very compelling and interesting. But I absolutely think Ricochet was great tonight, and he could be a great national champion, but you have to give tons and tons of credit to Mercedes, to your point, for all the different promotions and all the different championships Mercedes has gone out, and all the business, to your point, that she's done for the different promotions she's wrestled for. And I think those promoters are onto something. Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, good heavens. It could end at any time for Ricochet.
Those promoters are onto something.
We can only hope. Why? You know, I was going to say if somebody would take the transcript of his media scrums and just boil the answers down to a sentence or two, then you could actually maybe understand them, and they would only take like 10 or 15 minutes total for the whole scrum. But then there really is no answer to boil down, is there?
He gave a 5-minute answer to that national championship question where he actually kind of answered it in the last 8 seconds. But it took us a long while to get there. Like, it's like an AEW show. It's like an AEW match. That's the way Tony's brain works. You'll get the finish, but you're going to be here a while, and you're going to see a lot. Maybe too much, but you'll get the finish. Jim, Tony was asked in the media scrum after Full Gear about the runtime for AEW pay-per-views, and is there a chance they'll get back to ending before midnight on the East Coast? Here's Tony Khan.
Lots of hands. This is great. I love this. Thank you for all coming.
Grant Matthews with Bleacher Report. Tony, earlier you mentioned the quality of programming that AEW's been delivering this year, the consistency and the quality of the programming, and I think that's been especially evident so far on pay-per-view in 2025 for AEW. But that being said, though, with the runtime of these shows, will we ever get back to a point where we can deliver the same quality of event that gets done before midnight, 11:30, specifically for the East Coast shows? Or, I mean, maybe specifically in terms of crowd engagement and stuff like that, just maximize that.
For Saturday night.
Good Lord. And he had to grovel like some foreign leader bringing Donald Trump a golden egg and then ask a question after he's blown him.
And you don't get you don't see the visual of Tony responding to that. He just very, very, shakes his head nervously, or he kind of sometimes, this one, he tipped his cup to the man. When the man said the pay-per-views have been so great over the last year, Tony tipped his glass to him, or his paper cup.
They've been great, but can they possibly be great under 4 hours so anybody could leave the arena and get home before daylight? That type of thing.
Well, let's go to Tony Khan's answer. A good question.
I definitely was in, I could see that, after Dynasty, I like the feedback. So I do think, like, to your point, after Dynasty, I said, like, I probably on the East Coast wouldn't do a Sunday night like that late again. And so then we started doing, which worked really well, a lot of afternoon start times. I thought tonight was really great. And obviously there was a lot of captivated people throughout the night. I am interested in that.
Captive. I don't know about captivated, but they were being held captive.
Epic pay-per-views with earlier start times was interesting. Also, when the show, to your point, like, is on the West Coast, like, it's not as you can play with the start times a little more. Also, it'll be interesting going back to Sundays, because I look at Sundays and Saturdays a little bit different from each other. I go to boxing matches and MMA where, like, the main event's not getting into the ring until like 1 a.m, and the cards are like several hours longer with the prelims. But it's and there's like 37 minutes between fights with video, like, and whereas the action doesn't pace the same. So I really like it, but at the same time, I like the feedback. So after Dynasty.
He's all about, I like the feedback. Thank you for the feedback. The feedback is these shows are going way too long and they're ending way too late. And he's like, I love it. He doesn't want it to end. That's the problem. You're listening to him. He's not like looking to go back to the hotel. He doesn't want the show to end.
Well, and it's a different audience now more than ever with the UFC or the big boxing fights. And a lot of those people just go to sit there and drink. But nevertheless, he can't address the issue. Thanks for the feedback. I'm not going to listen to it, is what he's saying.
Last year, or, this past year, when in Philly, I was like, I love the show, but I probably on a Sunday, maybe I wouldn't do that on the East Coast. So I think I look at Saturdays and Sundays different. We'll have a history of doing more Saturday pay-per-views in Q4, particularly like during football season. I really think it serves us well not to do Sunday pay-per-views. So then Saturday pay-per-views, I will always be a little more flexible than Sunday. But also, I think there was something to the early start time pay-per-views at times too, and that could be interesting too. So, something to think about. We ended up
it could be interesting to do one on a deserted island somewhere in the South Pacific. But for this purpose of this fucking answer, just get to the point, say it one time, and move on.
With early start times, and that ended up being, they were all great shows. So there might be something to that. And then, we've always done our contracted time from the shows has always been close to 4 hours. Like, so if you look, every AEW pay-per-view has gone over 3.5 hours. There's never been an AEW pay-per-view that went under 3.5 hours in the history of the company, because we were contracted to do shows that go about 3:45. And
wait, hold on one second. He's saying these words came out of his chicken lips, Brian, last. We were contracted to do 3 hours and 45 minutes. That's what he just said, right?
That's what he said, yeah.
That ain't the way it works. They don't tell you, the pay-per-view company or the streaming distributor or whatever, they don't tell you how long your show has to be. You have to clear the length of your show with them. When it was satellite pay-per-view, you had to get satellite time. That's why Vince would never go over 3 hours. He'd have to buy, in the early days, you had to buy another hour of satellite time, which was thousands of dollars, whatever. But No, he's telling them how long that's what he's telling them. His side says this show is going to be at least 3 hours and 45 minutes. And then they still go over. And remember, in some cases, some systems have cut them off over the past few years. Remember, that's happened a time or two. That's because they were going to go 4 hours, and then they started going 4.5. So it's up to him. Nobody says we're not going to carry that fucking show unless it's X amount of time in length. That is not a thing that takes place.
You're booking a time slot. You're booking a window. When you do pay-per-view, you're saying, we have a 3-hour window. That's why WWE pay-per-views would typically end a few minutes before 3 hours, because that was their window.
Yeah, and in the early days for the replay, they had to have this into the time I was with TNA in the early 2000s. They had to have like 6 or 7 minutes to rewind the goddamn tape. So that's why there was always panic if you weren't off the air 10 minutes till. Oh, fuck.
Well, let's go back to a man that's not panicking, Tony Khan. He's still answering this question.
And thankfully, we never ended up in a Chi-Town Rumble situation where they had to send enhancement guys to go wrestle for 15 minutes after Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat because they didn't fill the contract time. They do a pretty good job pacing it. So,
What?
I think it's interesting, but definitely, you know, I always like hearing the fans' feedback. I thought tonight was really, really great show, though.
And that was it.
Well, that was it. Here's my feedback, Tony. Get out of show business.
They didn't. By the way, it was, who was it they sent out after Flair and Steamboat in Chicago? It was
it
God
Steve
damn
Casey?
it. And Kendall Windham. And they didn't not fulfill a contract. They saw that they had time. Flair and Steamboat went home early because it was right. So they were going to send one more match out also for the people in the arena. And there was, you know, I think they were close on the pay-per-view time anyway, but for the people in the arena. And then the mistake they made was they were only supposed to go like 6 or 8 minutes, but they sent them out there and then everybody was so excited about Flair and Steamboat. Nobody ever sent them a cue. So they went like 20 fucking minutes. I think they went off the air on the pay-per-view too. Nobody told them to go home.
It's pretty fucking funny.
Anyway.
Well, Jim, our next question to Tony Khan from the Media
Christ.
Scrum.
Is it his last one?
It isn't. There are several more here.
Oh, Christ.
But this one is about if Tony watches independent wrestling and what he looks for when scouting talent. Let's go to this.
Oh, boy.
Thank you.
Tony, you've got to fly to Phoenix for Jags for tomorrow. You want to take 3 more questions?
That sounds great, but at the same time, I do appreciate you all being
Of course.
here, and it feels like even you know I'll try to pace them here. So three feels about right.
Cool.
Great. Thanks, Renee.
Tony, thanks for the time. Rob Posbani from The Stunner here. A few years ago here at Full
The
Gear,
Stunner
was one of the most iconic moments where we had the double debut of Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson. And I'm just curious.
What was it all out?
Oh, that was all out?
That was all out 21.
I'm sorry, it's late.
Okay.
But
So in that case, my whole question is bullshit. Thank you very much.
Why did the guy ask that if he wasn't certain about that? But let's go back to this. Let's go back to Tony Khan.
I'm sure you're constantly scouting. And I'm curious, do you watch independent wrestling yourself?
Yeah, I do.
Like, are you looking for the next?
Yeah, I do. Sometimes I go to independent wrestling.
So what do you look for when you're scouting? Like what?
I look for wrestlers that the fans connect with, and also and it's all different things. Just like in football players are built different. Like you're looking for different players that play different roles. Like not every player is the same height and speed and skill set. And there are things that you look for in some players versus other players, and you look for people that can come and play a role in your organization. So when you're looking, you say, oh, I think that person could do this. And then eventually maybe they could grow into a role. And same thing when you're scouting a football player. You think, okay, well, they could come in and I think they could play this role in the organization. And then I think they have the potential to grow. And sometimes in whether it's football or wrestling.
Let me stop it for a second because that's a great example there. Because much like wrestling, Tony was inserted in a job in football, and now he's talking about football scouting. Successful football scouting. Like he understands it like
Aren't they the worst
professionals.
team in the whole goddamn history of football, is what everybody is always saying?
Well, I don't know about the whole history of football, but they haven't been good. I think this year is the best year they've had in a while, and they haven't had a good year in a long while. But again, they have people you hire. You know, baseball scouts are typically old players or people who have been around the game forever. Never like, hey, the kid of the owner wants to be a scout. He's a scout now. What? That was the Wilpon.
Well, here's the thing.
That was Jeff Wilpon. That's what that is.
It's an easy thing for him to say, I look for people to connect with the fans or the fans like or whatever. Well, yeah, dingbat, of course. But also that just makes it a little easier in some cases. But this is the problem. He's going to indie shows and he's seeing who the indie fans connect with instead of going to indie shows, looking at all the talent and saying, first and foremost, what could I do with that guy? How would I present that guy? How would I produce that guy? What is do I see a baby face or a heel? What do I see to accentuate his presentation? A change in clothing, a different attitude, some kind of music, whatever the fuck. What slot might he fit in a roster that I'm envisioning? Would he be an upper card guy or a main event guy? Or is he a young, exciting preliminary star that you could see some growth in? And have it's not just who 300 people in a barn in Poughkeepsie are going to be cheering for because they're a local guy or doing a silly gimmick, or it's somehow caught on because it's a rib amongst the fan base, which he's hired a bunch of ribs, whether it's because the guy sticks his hands in his pockets or his thumb up his ass or whatever the funny thing is. That guy has got over with those fans, but you can't put it on fucking television, although he does. But scouting talent is, how is this guy's work? Is his shit good at the same time safe? Does he have timing? Talk to him. Can he cut a promo? What is there about him that you like, but what is it about him that you believe he should do better if he's going to fit into what your fucking vision is? Am I going above Tony's head at this point?
I don't know if it's possible to go above his head. He's pretty high. But Jim, let's get back to this answer. There's still a little bit more about what he looks for when scouting independent wrestling.
I'm high.
People
I can't come down.
Overperform or underperform those expectations, but they're just estimations and ideas that you have. But in the end, I go out and I look for people that I think could connect with the fans and people that could be good fit for AEW, and especially people that'll be good in our locker room and be a good part of the company, but also people that are going to be great wrestlers for us. And it doesn't necessarily in every case have to be right away. Sometimes it can be, but it could be somebody for the future. Thanks.
Thank you. Brian asked me if anytime I've ever booked anything anywhere, if I wondered whether or not that the guy would get along with the rest of the locker room.
Jim, when scouting independent talent, do you take into the equation how the wrestler will get along with the rest of your locker room?
No. Not even independent to anywhere, anytime. No booker in history ever. Well, I'd love to bring that guy in, but I'm afraid the boys wouldn't like him. Well, fuck it. They'll have to fucking figure it out. They'll goddamn one or the other will like you, one or the other, or one or the other will goddamn leave. But I'm not gonna just, I don't think somebody would like him. What the fuck?
And what are your thoughts on Tony when he's not dealing with all this AEW stuff and football stuff, watching independent wrestling, going to independent shows, looking for talent? I guess his eye is a talent scout.
Well, I don't know how he has time, or again, it's so much of the same shit. I don't know how he has the patience, but we've seen that Tony has plenty of energy. But I wonder, does he disguise himself? Like, because there's not a lot of pictures that you see circulated. Well, there's Tony Khan at front row at Garbage Championship Wrestling Palooza. So I wonder if is he hiding? Is he sneaking the back? Is he hiding? Whatever. Me and Bobby and Stan were leaving the Orange Bowl in Miami at the Bash 87. And a guy came up and said, Jim. And I said, not now, buddy, got to go. He grabbed me by the arm. I looked around. He took his baseball cap off. It was Pat Patterson.
What?
Since he lived in Florida or had a place in Florida at that time, and he came down to the show and came in and was just checking out the talent on Crockett's roster.
Had you ever met him before?
No, that's the first time I met him. He just said, shh, don't say anything. Loved your match, boys. Oh, thank you, Pat. Good to see you. We got to go, blah, blah, blah. And he went back in to sneak up and look at the rest of the show.
Shit. I don't think I've ever heard that story before. Wow.
And at first I almost blew him off. I thought he was going to ask for my autograph, and it's fucking Pat. But but that's the thing, is that every once in a while, you would send in the old days when anybody had opposition, whether it was local or national, you'd send somebody you trusted over to sit up in the fucking bleachers and see how the show went, what people thought of it, and what talent you might want later on.
All right, Jim, our next question for Tony Khan from the Media Scrum following Full Gear is a question regarding the potential sale of WBD, something you just talked about on the Experience.
Uh-huh.
And what happens if someone with ties to WWE purchases it? Let's go to this.
Hey, take a few more here.
Hi, Tony. Aria Whitner, F4WOnline.com. Earlier this week, it came out that there were a number of suitors for Warner Brothers Discovery, including some that already have commitments to other pro wrestling companies. Are you worried that if WBD is sold to one of these companies, that that may not be good for the future of AEW on TV?
I am not worried at all. I feel really, really good. First of all, we have a great partnership with Warner Brothers Discovery, and we are very blessed to work with the great Superstation TBS with TNT, and now having the show stream on HBO Max. And no, that doesn't concern me at all. I'm very, 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 very optimistic about the future of AEW and where everything's going. Thank you. Is there any?
That was a quick one there, but what are your
That was
thoughts?
the quickest answer ever in the history of Tony Khan answers.
Is that a tell?
What else?
In and of itself, the
Yes,
idea that he said
yes.
something quickly like that.
Yes, and let's move on to another subject. The answer that he did give was, we have a great relationship with the people that own the thing now. I had a great relationship, Brian, with the guy that used to own the car wash that I used to go to, where the guys where they all knew me, and boy, they would just buff everything just right down to the goddamn shine. And then they sold it and they do a shitty job because I don't have a great relationship with them anymore because of different fucking people. So he can't say he needs to be worried, but he needs to be worried. And that's why he didn't say anything, because he's worried.
Yeah, he was looking very positive in the video while this is all happening. He obviously doesn't want to give away any weakness. And again, even if you have a great partner in WBD, and I guess you could argue they really are a great partner. They let AEW do whatever the hell they want. They give them more time than they're supposed to have on their shows. They let them air
a lot of money.
They let them air the pre-show now into the pay-per-view and cut off the main event of TV. It just goes from Okada into a movie. Like he's standing there and all of a sudden a movie starts. So they really have been a great partner.
Because they do derive some benefit from their pay-per-views, and they do have some, whether it be minute amount or not, of ownership, and somehow they're financially benefiting to some degree from this. But the question is it going to be long enough, or is this going to be another deal only on a much bigger scale where Spike TV comes and says to TNA, well, we've been paying a lot of fucking extra talent expenses and this and that for you guys, and what the fuck? And then Dixie's going to be hamana. Only this is Jacksonville, Dixie. So he's going to go hamana for about 6 minutes straight.
And again, you could talk about how you're a big part of Max. If Max gets gobbled up by Netflix, you're not a big part of Max anymore. because it's about what Netflix wants, but we'll see what happens. There are a lot of interesting stories going around about potential purchasers of WBD. One way or another, it will affect AEW. Jim, our final question for Tony, an interesting one because it relates to something we've talked about for any booker, let alone for Tony Khan, and we've discussed it about him as well, and we're going to have follow-up audio from Dave Meltzer after this.
Oh, good Lord.
But it's Tony Khan being asked
Brian,
about...
you're just hitting me with all these great orators.
It's
just these incredibly talented public speakers that just captivate your attention. You sit in rapt bemusement at the whole thing.
Well, here's Tony Khan being asked about burnout as a booker and as a promoter for AEW.
Anybody here who has not gotten to ask a question yet that's holding up? Yes. Okay. Because we've had, thank you. I want to make sure anybody who has not gotten to ask a question yet gets, thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
I just have to ask, clearly you're a big wrestling fan, like a lot of us are in here as well too. But in being in that space, you know, we have what we like to call a burnout, basically, where it's
a what?
A burnout. It's what we social media influencers call where you're posting so much, you're
Burnout. You're saying it too fast.
Oh, burnout. There we go. Burnout.
A burnout?
Yes. Yes. It's
what I have a feeling that Tony's heard this phrase before. He suddenly doesn't know burnout.
You have a burnout. It sounds like a meltdown. It sounds like a nervous breakdown. You get burnt out. I don't know. Is English a second language for all the people in this room? I see no video. I don't know why they have such trouble and mangle the goddamn King's English.
And you have to see Tony's face as he's trying to figure out what this man is saying, and then he realizes it's burnout, and it's Tony that he's asking about burnout.
Tony may not understand. Hard work. What?
Basically where you're posting so much, you're consuming so much of the product that you just kind of go into that burnout phase to where you don't feel as motivated to say post or as motivated to basically do what's a part of your job necessarily. I have to say for you, if there's any case where you might be, say, a little less motivated.
No, I haven't taken a break from wrestling in a long, long time, and I love it. And I'm very much in the zone. I love coming to work every week, and it's I've never missed a show, and I absolutely love it. And I talked about this a little bit earlier in the week, but I love coming here, and even if it's a question I've talked about before, and this is not a question I've talked about. I really like it, but I did reference some things along these lines earlier this week that I'd get back into. Every day I come into work, I'm so grateful to be in the chair. And I think all the time about how fortunate I am. I'm also really glad that you all, for the most part, a lot of the wrestling fans seem to like the work I'm doing and want me to be in the chair, because I'm also cognizant that it's not always that way for people. And I feel like, again, like I said earlier, a year ago, I felt like I was working really hard and I was trying my best. And I feel like after a year later, being in the same building in the same place, after turning it, you know, it feels like we're in a better place than we were a year ago.
Let me stop it real quick. Would a sign of burnout be not necessarily like you're stressed or, you know, just you're hitting a wall, but you can't recognize when things that are not good aren't good?
That's what and I just keep sighing because he just won't ever end. But it's not about not being excited to come to work or not trying hard or not, you know, being motivated to do it. It's you've lost it. You're burnout. You can't. This is not like a job where you go and perform a specific function every day. Whether it's music, the music business, or whether it's movie making or the television business or the wrestling business, it's entertainment. There's not office hours. There's not days off, weekends, Sunday. It doesn't make any difference. In the wrestling business, it's all the time, constantly, for however long you're doing it. And that's why bookers would quit booking for a while, or promoters would goddamn. Jerry Jarrett bought him a construction company to have something else to fucking do. Whatever. You can't just do this goddamn forever. And it's being creative is more difficult than just going and doing a rote task. You can go and stuff envelopes, you get burnt out with that, and you don't want to goddamn go to work. But in this case, being responsible for a television program for entertainment in effect, as bad as he wants to go, he just ain't got anything else to do. He's doing the same shit over and over the same way. As Ernie Ladd would say, wring your brain out. Your brain is like a sponge. When it has absorbed all it can, you must wring it out. He's just doing the same shit over and over. He's bumping into the wall. But it doesn't mean he doesn't enjoy it. He just he's lost it.
Well, let's see if he finds it. More audio from Tony Khan about burnout.
Many ways. And for me, I don't get that. So I'm always really grateful. Now, as a wrestling fan, wrestling's on 52 weeks a year. So I do realize that, like, it takes a special kind of sports fan to have no off season and to follow a sport year round. And there were times when I was a kid where there would be periods where, like, I'd be, when I was playing basketball and it was like, I would miss some wrestling shows, and the next thing you know, you missed the show a couple weeks in a row, and I'd tape a lot of things on VHS. So I'd forget to set the recorder, and then you missed the show. And there were a couple times where that, like, in the 90s, I had a couple times like that. And then time.
Let me stop it real quick.
What does it have to do with him being burnt out after booking his fucking fiasco for 6 years that he used to miss a show every once in a while in the goddamn 90s?
And he hasn't missed one since.
He was a fan.
He's saying he hasn't missed one since. He's trying to think back to when he missed a show, and he's like, well, there was a time in the 90s that I kind of wasn't interested. It's been nonstop ever since.
He wasn't writing them except in his basement to his other 3 fans on whatever the thing was. Again, this is burnout of whether you're an executive producer, whether you're a Lennon and McCartney as songwriters, whether you're a goddamn movie producer, whether you're a writer, you've got writer's block. He's done it. He can only rehash the same shit. He needs to get away from it at least, even if he comes back to it. I'm not saying that would be a lot better, but you can tell he's slowing down a little bit unless they adjusted his medication. He's a little less peppy than he used to be, but mentally, come up with a goddamn new idea. One that's good, not one that you just think is good because you won't listen to people.
Let's go back to Tony Khan.
After time, anytime I got away from it, I always rediscover my love for it. And then being entrenched in it now for 7 years, every single week without a week away from it, I'm obsessed with it. I love it so much. I never think about being away from it, and I eat and breathe and sleep it. So it's really a pleasure to be here, and I never take it for granted how special it is to be able to do this. Thank you for asking.
All right, well, there it is. Then he's going to ask again.
You know what? I'll tell you one more thing, and then I'm glad we're done with him. In Smoky Mountain Wrestling, I never missed a TV because we shot our TV once every 3 or 4 weeks, right? But toward the end, I not only took off some of the spot shows because it was just getting ridiculous. I needed some goddamn sleep, but also for the whole duration, maybe once every 3 months or so, I would tell Brian Hildebrand and Sandy Scott, you'll see me in 3.5 days. And there would be a way that they could call me somehow if somebody goddamn fell in a well, and otherwise I crawled in my hole somewhere and didn't think about fucking wrestling for about 3 days.
Imagine how you feel if you're a Jaguars fan and you hear Tony, who has always been so involved, saying he's obsessed with wrestling, doesn't miss a show, it's all he wants to do, it's all he thinks about. How's he supposed to have time and the energy and the desire for all these other things, the football team, the soccer team.
Well, but here's the thing.
The analytics.
He didn't really run those to begin with. It's not like he's out there writing the football game for them. That's why they can't pick talent. That's something that runs as a pattern. But they've got people running the football team. Can you imagine that if he went in and said, okay, guys, now on 4, hut 1, hut 2, whatever? No. Because this is his childhood fantasy. He didn't book football games, so he'll let other people do that. He booked wrestling, so he's got to do this.
Well, of course, Jim, a lot of us have thought that Tony has indeed burned out. Not that he had great ideas at the beginning, but the same things over and over, the mistakes that are never learned from. The TV's not exactly good. But someone did come to the defense of Tony's burnout, and that's Dave Meltzer, who apparently returned from his vacation and recorded, or maybe he's still on vacation. I don't know. He's in a room I've never seen him in here in this video. But he's speaking to his co-host, Garrett Gonzalez.
Hey, wait a minute. Is there padding on the walls? That could be a clue.
No, but Dave's hair gets darker and darker every time I see him. I don't know what he's doing to his hair. But let's go to this audio right now. Garrett Gonzalez and Dave Meltzer talking about Tony Khan burnout.
Somebody asked Tony about burnout. What did you think about that question? That was pretty interesting.
He doesn't burn out, but it's kind of inhuman to do as much as he does. I mean, he is devoting most of his time to the wrestling, but it's not like he's not, devoting a lot of time to football and soccer. But yeah, I mean, look, I think it's pretty clear that Tony Khan's always going to be the booker of AEW, and whether that's good or bad. I mean, if you like the product the way he presents it, it's good. If you want some other type of product, it's not going to be that product.
Yeah.
And
wow,
that's how.
Let's stop it there for a second, because what Dave is saying is actually the truth. I think he's saying yes, exactly right here.
That's amazing that he's come out and said it. Won't that offend Tony more than anything else? Is that Dave is actually saying, look, it's not going to change. It's never going to get better. If you like what it is, this is what it's going to be. But it ain't ever going to change because Tony's never going to quit.
That is what he's saying.
Wow.
Tony's always going to be the booker, and for anyone who wants a different thing, which you could take as a better thing, it isn't going to be that. Let's go back a little more audio here.
How it is. There's a lot of different questions on that, but sometimes you don't know you're burning out, and a lot of times when it comes to booking, bookers burn out and they're the last to know it. And I'm not saying that Tony's burned out or anything like that.
And that's where that clip cut off on YouTube, but.
Well, now then, I'm not saying that this is what's happened, but this is what's happened. Good Lord. And
yeah, he's having this conversation with Garrett Gonzalez. Listen to some of the things Brian Alvarez has been saying about the
Well, I was about to say, is Garrett Gonzalez trying to do Brian Alvarez like a Waylon Flowers and Madam type of thing where Alvarez has his hand up Gonzalez's ass? Because he sounds just like him.
I don't think that's I don't know if they sound alike, but I don't think that's the situation at all. But
I thought you were going to say you didn't know whether a hand was up anybody's ass or not, but you're just concerned about how they sound.
Jim, burnout is what we're talking about here.
Burnout's a thing that I'm going through after listening to those two brilliant enunciators. Jesus Christ. If either one of them had been Abraham Lincoln, we'd still have slavery.
You see, Dave won't admit that Tony isn't as good as he thinks he is. He'll just say, instead of saying like Tony needs help or he'll just say like Tony's going to be the one doing it. That's just the way it is. This is what it's going to be. This is how it is. It's a weird form of just acceptance. Just accept this is how Tony books and this is what the show's going to be, and nothing will improve it. Stop being a grifter. Stop complaining about it. Just this whole, You got to learn. Just everything with Dave, this nonsense. And he said everything true there about burnout and how it affects bookers, and they're the last to know. He just wouldn't apply it to the person we're talking about, Tony.
But that's the closest he's come, so I do have to give him a tip of the hat instead of a wag of the finger, because he actually said the truth, just didn't apply it to the specific person. So he's got plausible deniability when Tony says, "You said bad things about my booking."
Well, Jim, there'll be plenty more bad things to say about his booking in the future. That was the AEW Full Gear Media Scrum for Tony Khan.